Good evening, you're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Farhana Sheikh. The Health Ministry has recommended a third COVID-19 booster shot for the elderly and those with comorbidities. Health Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Zulkifli Ahmad says there is sufficient stock of the vaccine available to protect the public. This comes as COVID-19 cases in Malaysia almost doubled in a 7-day period. Zulkifli said the booster shots currently in stock offered adequate protection against all strains and new variants of the virus. The newly minted minister also urged the public to wear face masks in crowded places. He said the year-end holidays, increased movement of people and weather conditions contribute to the rise in cases. The 49th epidemiological week from December 3rd to 9th saw 12,757 reported cases, compared to 6,796 cases in the previous week. Meanwhile, the Malaysian Medical Association (MMA) also advised the public to continue COVID-19 self-testing and self-quarantine. He said although most of the current COVID-19 cases are reported to be mild, those with a weak immune system could still be at risk of hospitalization for severe COVID-19 and, depending on their condition, even death. Digitalizing the healthcare system and establishing electronic medical records are among key reforms that Datuk Seri Dr. Zulkifli Ahmad hopes to bring on his return to the health portfolio. The newly appointed health minister was speaking at his first address to the ministry's monthly assembly earlier today.
This is also another of my baby. Di samping health financing adalah digital health transformation. Selagi kita tidak dapat memulakan that journey, seriously, just not IT, it's just not about your HIS, KKM, it's the entire, ia adalah cita-cita untuk mendapatkan one citizen, one record. And there's a seamless connection of all facilities, horizontal, vertical, public, private. Yang akhirnya nanti kita akan mengizinkan a patient must only be asked the same question once.
He hopes to establish a patient master index that will be accessible to all doctors, to be done in stages over a reasonable period of time. Dr. Zul also stressed on the importance of health financing reforms, adding that not much is being done to pool financial resources to fund healthcare. He said it was important to avoid inefficient spending and create a single financing system that would allow the strategic purchasing of services for both private and public healthcare.
The Malaysian Medical Association has urged the newly appointed Health Minister, Datuk Seri Dr. Zulkifli Ahmad, to revive the generational endgame policy to create a smoke-free Malaysia. Among the measures he should consider is also to release nicotine under the Poisons Act 1952.
To release the nicotine under the Poisons Act and revive the generational endgame. Because Dr. Zul took a strong stand against smoking during his first term when he was a minister then, with the ban on smoking at eateries, okay? That has benefited the public. So we hope he will maintain this strong stand against smoking and vaping.
As for public healthcare, Dr. Azizan hopes for an improvement in the welfare of medical officers.
Of course, the expectations that we are expecting from him, especially in the public healthcare, we need improvement in the welfare of the public healthcare workforce by addressing the low wages, the on-call allowance, the burnout issues, maldistribution of healthcare workers, transparency in selection criteria for permanent posts and promotions, the work culture, and also bullying that is also still happening.
Dr. Azizan also urged the new minister to look into the gazettement of a 2013 amendment to Schedule 7 of the Private Healthcare Facilities and Services Act 1998 that will address the issue of underpaid GPs.
Imagine the GPs are, they're having the fee schedule that was actually incorporated, which MMA had their fee schedule done in 1992. Then the ministry in 2006 incorporate it in the Public Healthcare Facility Act. So how many decades there? It's like 31 years of fee schedule that hasn't been revamped for the GPs out there. Can you imagine that? So that is very trying, with the, the rental, the inflation rate that hasn't been addressed for decades. So I hope I hope YBMK would look into it also urgently.
Former Sabah Chief Minister Datuk Seri Shafie Apdal confirms that Warisan and Sabah UMNO will work together for the next state election. The Warisan President says Sabah UMNO Chief Datuk Seri Bong Mokhtar Radin had agreed to the partnership.
The two parties would take on the Gabungan Rakyat Sabah GRS coalition led by Chief Minister Datuk Seri Haji Noor. Shafie added that they had invited Parti Solidariti Tanah Airku and Parti Bersatu Sabah to team up with them, but that the two GRS components had rejected their offer. Previously, Bong said Sabah UMNO was also considering a partnership with Parti Kesejahteraan Demokratik Masyarakat, led by former Warisan Vice President Datuk Peter Anthony. The term of the current Sabah government will expire in October 2025, but Haji has hinted that the next state election could be held as early as next year.
The Malaysian Media Council Bill, due to be drafted next year, will address issues related to advertising revenue for media organisation. According to Communications Minister Fahmi Fazil, advertising revenue is currently only paid to social media platform providers.
Di sini saya lihat perlu ada sedikit keseimbangan supaya ada sedikit pulangan kepada syarikat-syarikat media. Ini kita masih dalam perbincangan dan saya percaya semua pihak boleh dibawa ke meja rundingan supaya satu suasana yang kondusif dapat kita laksanakan.
Fahmi noted that advertising revenue is one of the biggest challenges facing local media. It is estimated that media owners lose about 2 billion ringgit out of a total of 4.5 billion ringgit in annual advertising expenditure to the top three social media giants, Meta, Google and TikTok. Despite the recent cabinet reshuffle, the government remains committed to achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability Minister Nik Nazmini Ahmad says he will work closely with Energy Transition and Renewable Energy Minister Datuk Sri Fadila Yusof on the matter.
Nik Nazmi said his portfolio would deal with issues relating to forests, land, wildlife conservation, environmental sustainability and climate change. Meanwhile, Fadila's ministry would oversee issues related to electricity, water supply and sewage systems. On Tuesday, the government announced a cabinet reshuffle that saw two ministries split into 4 new ones. These included the Ministry of Natural Resources, Environment and Climate Change and the Ministry of Communications and Digital.
We'll go for a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
December 16, 2023, the Malaysia Women and Girls Forum, MWGF, is back. MWGF The Review is a special feature on Astro AWANI, tracking our national progress for enhancing the well-being of Malaysia's women and girls. Join us as we speak to ministers, academics and civil society organizations about what it takes to achieve gender equality and the 2030 SDGs. Catch MWGF The Review live on Saturday 16 December 2 p.m. and the repeat on Monday 18 December at 10 a.m. Brought to you by the United Nations and UNFPA Malaysia, supported by Astro AWANI.
Dua beradik dibesarkan oleh keluarga angkat penuh konflik.
Ini kosong mahal ni. Tempat aku belajar tu banyak anak orang kaya.
Macam ni ke anak yang Aunty besarkan selama ni?
Sekarang ni masa kita balas jasa Aunty Mona.
Mencari jawapan kepada tragedi lalu.
Satu hari saya akan jadi macam tu. Angan-angan boleh tapi kena... Weh, mak! Faham ni? Sebabkan dia ni, mak kita tak bersalah tu mati. Aku janji, kita akan dapat keadilan tu, mak.
Jangan lupa janji di Astro Ria dan Astro Go.
Siapakah Gempak Most Wanted 2023? Anda yang akan menentukannya.
Layari www.gempakmostwantedawards.com sekarang untuk mengundi.
Gempak Most Wanted Awards, terpaling trending.
Welcome back. Israel has vowed to continue fighting in Gaza until it crushes Hamas, even as it faces growing diplomatic isolation as civilian deaths mount. Israel's Foreign Minister Eli Cohen said Israel would continue its military operations in Gaza with or without international support. While Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the military would fight on despite international pressure for a ceasefire, US President Joe Biden said Israel was beginning to lose global support over its indiscriminate bombardment of Gaza, his strongest criticism of Israel yet. Fierce fighting continued in both northern and southern Gaza, a day after the United Nations called for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. In the last 24 hours, Israel reported that 10 of its soldiers had been killed in an ambush, its worst combat losses in more than a month. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is revamping his government, the third cabinet shake-up in 16 months, as a major corruption scandal in the ruling party has forced the resignations of several ministers. Close ally and Chief Cabinet Secretary Hirokazu Matsuno and Industry Minister Yasutoshi Nishimura were among those who announced their resignations today. Internal Affairs Minister Junji Suzuki and Agriculture Minister Ichiro Miyashita were also stepping down, and that 5 deputy ministers would be let go. The ministers all come from the biggest and most powerful faction in the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, aligned with former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Japanese prosecutors have begun a criminal investigation into the faction over allegations of receiving about $3.5 million in fundraising proceeds missing from party accounts. Since news of the scandal broke a few weeks ago, Kishida has seen his public support drop to about 23%, the lowest since he came into office in October 2021. Meanwhile, in Beijing, schools and highways were closed and some train services suspended as a snowstorm hit parts of northern and central China for the second time this week. Authorities are bracing for what could be one of the worst cold snaps of December. Weather charts also revealed the rapidly deteriorating weather in the southern part of China, with temperatures across some provinces set to fall by more than 14 to 20 degrees Celsius by the end of the week. This week's cold snap was in sharp contrast to the autumn-like conditions of a week ago, reflecting recent sharp temperature swings. October was one of Beijing's warmest in decades in a year of weather extremes. In other news, Tesla is recalling more than 2 million cars in the United States due to defects in its autopilot driving assistance system. It applies to almost every Tesla sold in the US since the autopilot feature was introduced in 2015. The recall followed a 2-year investigation into some 950 Tesla crashes that occurred while the technology was in use. It is the biggest ever recall for the car maker, owned by billionaire Elon Musk, as the development by autonomous vehicles in the US has raised safety concerns in recent months. According to the US National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the scope of autopilot's controls may not be sufficient to prevent driver misuse. The feature is designed to help with steering, acceleration and braking, but despite its name, the car still requires input from the driver. Tesla has said it will install new safeguards and fix current defects. That wraps our AWANI tonight. I'm Farhana Sheikh. Thank you for watching.